The Shark Deck.
I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. The late night writer's still on strike. The late bot was talking about President Biden trying to get this budget deal done and pointed out that President Biden's early bedtime is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it's hard to negotiate when he's in bed by 7. On the other hand, at least he won't accidentally tweet his real thoughts at 2 a.m. And going to bed, that's a good thing because it prevents him from sending late-night texts to Republicans that start with, "Hey, you up?" Tom Segura, he'll have a new special on Netflix. Tom Segura Sledgehammer, coming out July 4th. Interesting choice of date there. Segura filmed this before a sold-out crowd at Phoenix's Celebrity Theater. Imagine he filmed it in front of like a half-empty theater. Wouldn't that be weird? This one, we'll talk about Tom Segura's comedian wife, their 2 young sons, his now widowed mom, whoever's been sharing his gummies, and Brad Pitt. Tom just wrapped up his tour and he misses his 2 young kids. He said, "I got home 2 nights ago." By the time you're hearing this, it's probably more like 4 nights ago. "I did my last show in Iceland, flew back, and yeah, at that age, the kids, you miss a month and you're like, whoa, you're a different person." Tom looked back on the pandemic and said, it's hard to put yourself in that headspace again because now, honestly, anybody talks about pandemic stuff, you're like, are they still talking about that? But you talk to your agent at the beginning there and they'd be like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's coming back and when. You can go to a club in Oklahoma City. They'll let you do a show and you'd agree to it. It was just a whole different world. An important part of this set for Tom Segura was talking about his father's death. He said, obviously, it didn't play like, hey, this is a real serious thing I'm going to talk about, but it was definitely something that sat with me. I'll say I'm really pleased with the special. I made some really grown-up decisions. I wanted this to be a tighter special. When I look back at my old specials, I always regret not cutting out more, so I've made this grown-up decision to cut big chunks that had really killed. There was one about being abroad that killed live, but it didn't need to be in the special. There was one that felt dated, and there was one where we really contemplated because actually one of the Netflix executives was like, I love that bit. But it was 4 minutes, and we've now got it at 61 minutes, so we'll probably end up releasing the bits that were cut out online, so people will still get to see them, but you realize it when you're touring. If you do 60 minutes tight and it's packed with laughs, it's more powerful than 80 minutes that's kind of loose. The Hollywood Reporter said, your comedy isn't overtly political, but you do a bit in this special about Ted Cruz being particularly disgusting, and Segura said, oh, that means you saw an older cut, because that's out of the special. Wait, why'd you cut it? Segura said, we were at 65 minutes and it was 4 minutes. That was the one that the Netflix executive loved. Maybe I should put it back in. But also, I look back on specials and feel like where you get somebody's name or you reference a song or TV show, it quickly feels aged. So I try to put myself in the mentality of somebody putting on the special in a few years and, he's very well known now, but eventually people will be like, who's Ted Cruz? A Hollywood Reporter very fascinated with the Ted Cruz bit. They said, you were touring with it. Did you give any thought to it or have any concern about how a joke like that lands in certain parts of the country? Segura said, what I figured out from doing it is the man is universally loathed. I mean, I did that bit, but like you said, in red markets and blue markets, it did in Canada, Australia, and sometimes when you travel, you're like, how's that going to go tonight? But it crushed basically everywhere, even in Canada. I know he was born there, but I remember the first time I visited Canada, I was like, how's this going to go here? And man, I got an even crazier response there. Bert Kreischer talked to Rich Eisen about working out with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Kreischer said he asked Schwarzenegger about the exercise that Arnold misses but can't do because of his age. Apparently the answer, Arnold misses doing deadlifts. Kreischer said, I just hung out with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I got a movie coming out, and then I see Ed Norton. He said he could barely contain his excitement after seeing Ed Norton. Norton walked by with nothing but a nod of acknowledgement, and that gave Bert Kreischer clarity. He said, Ed Norton's amazing, but I don't want to be that guy. I want to be Arnold Schwarzenegger. Apparently, Schwarzenegger likes Bert Kreischer's calves and said, holy cow, this guy has good calves. Some bodybuilders would be jealous of this guy's calves. This weekend, Donnell Rawlings hosting the Donnell Land Weekend Festival, May 26th through the 29th in Southwest Ohio. The Donnell Land Weekend Festival features a live stand-up comedy performance by Donnell Rawlings and friends. But wait, there's also a canoeing trip on the Mad River on Monday. DonnellRawlings.com for the info. Donnell says, I don't bank on TV or film. I bank on what I've been doing for 30 years, stand-up comedy. That's the one thing I can control. He joked about moving to Yellow Springs after visiting in 2020 to take part in Dave Chappelle's summer camp shows in the Village. He said, I went from the streets to the creeks, from the hoods to the woods. I'm the river ninja now. We haven't visited Gossip Corner in a while. Poor Adam Sandler. He was at a basketball game, and ESPN threw up a picture of a clean-cut Sandler back in 2008, followed by a bearded Sandler with a neutral facial expression. Apparently, the latter picture was not very flattering. Social media fans, one of them said, for no discernible reason, ABC just went, hey, look how old Adam Sandler's got in the last 15 years. Another said, ESPN made it look like Adam Sandler's been held in captivity for 15 years. And one more said, the price you pay for dragging the corpse of Rob Schneider's career well past its expiration date. Also on Gossip Corner, Chris Rock went to see Bruce Springsteen in Rome. Bruce was playing the Circus Maximus to a sold-out crowd on Saturday. Chris Rock must have had a good time. He posted a couple things on Insta. One was Springsteen and Steven Van Zandt mugging it up during Glory Days. Another was a band shot during Dancing in the Dark. Rock met some of the band after the show. Jake Clemens plays sax these days. He's Clarence Clemens' nephew, by the way. He posted a selfie with himself and Chris Rock and said, by the end of the set, we left no one alive except for Chris Rock. This mofo don't get knocked down by nobody. Someday we'll look back on this and it'll all seem funny.
Hi, my name is TJ, and I host a daily radio show. I have a bunch of friends that join me for it every day, and believe it or not, we all still see hope in humanity. Are you one of these people too? We want to hang out with you. Just search for The TJ Show on your favorite podcasting platform, or join us at thetjshow.com. We would love to have you being hopeful about humanity with us. Here's a quick sample of what the show sounds like. Hey, welcome to The TJ. As you can tell, you need to hear more of it. Search for The TJ Show, and we can't wait to meet you.
Colin Mochrie was asked who would play him in a movie about his life, and he said, George Clooney would probably be my first choice. But then he added Bill Murray. The observation there, Bill Murray, like Colin Mochrie, has devoted his career to deadpan comedy with a side order of droll. I could see Bill Murray as Colin Mochrie, not ridiculous. Colin's out on the Scared Scriptless tour and said, we like to have sort of a live version of Who's Line without the dead weight, and I'm talking about Wayne Brady and Ryan Stiles. So it's games for us that'll be familiar to fans of Who's Line. Then there's games we've had to adapt because it's just two of us and we don't have a host. It's even more interactive than a TV show. We have audience members on stage with us doing things. Just a couple hours of goofy fun. Let's see what's happening in New Zealand at the New Zealand Comedy Festival. Jermaine Ross's show is called Vaguely Familiar. He's wearing a Dodger hat here, but he seems to be from New Zealand, as you're about to hear.
I just recently got back from Australia. I was visiting my little brother there in Sydney, and my little brother's quite funny because he's only been there for about a year, so he's still got his Kiwi accent, except he'll say the odd random word in an Australian accent. So he'll be like, oh, hey, bro, do you want to go get a feed? There's a mean-ass fish and chip shop down by the beach. Which is awesome. I've never heard that the other way around, though. Like, I've never heard an Australian in New Zealand, mostly Aussie accent, but the odd random word in a Kiwi accent. I've never heard, hey, mate, listen, I want to tell you, if you want to make an omelette, you got to break a few eggs, bro.
All right, a little local in humor. Hopefully you found it amusing. I did. Maybe not as much as if I had grown up in Christchurch, but okay. The rest of the podcast today will be spoilers once again for Fast X. If you listened to the end yesterday, you know why. If you don't want to be spoiled on Fast X, see you tomorrow. I'll give you a couple seconds here to hit stop on the podcast. Are you gone? Okay, I guess you're gone. So, interesting twist about Pete Davidson appearing in Fast X. Did you watch Bupkis? There's a scene in Bupkis where Pete's agent, played by Chris O'Donnell, says, hey, Pete, they're pulling the offer on Fast and the Furious. The reason in the show was because Pete Davidson's character, Pete Davidson, was photographed doing whippets at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Pete said, but it was with the Avengers, like two of them, cool ones from the first movie. The only way to fix the problem on the show is to perform at Vin Diesel's daughter's birthday party in Miami. Apparently it worked out for the character Pete Davidson because it worked out for real Pete Davidson. I hope Pete's in Fast 11, and I hope they keep making these for 30 years. I'll watch Pete Davidson driving a car. Why isn't he driving a car? Meanwhile, James Gunn talked about Pete's cameo in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and James Gunn tweeted, Pete not only voiced, but actually came to visit us in Atlanta for a day and played Flecktick on set. That's your comedy news for today. Follow the show for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Smash and like that button or whatever you're supposed to do and ring the bell and all that YouTube stuff the kids do. Do that, will ya? See you tomorrow. So you're at McDonald's and you get your bag and you open your bag, you want to grab a couple fries or something, and there's $5,000 in it. Yeah, this happened to one guy. Hi, I'm Johnny Mac, host of 5 Good News Stories. He gave the money back, don't worry. If you want to start your day with a smile twice a week, I've got 5 good news stories for you. For example, there's an airline for dogs. Or what about the woman in her 80s who just released her debut album? How about the dude who found 150 corn on the cobs under his floorboards? Is corn on the cobs even the way you say that? Who cares? And yes, that was a pony at the supermarket. 5 good news stories, the number 5 good news stories, 5 good news stories, the number 5 good news stories, wherever you get your podcasts.